Just as phacoemulsification revolutionized cataract surgery in 1967, the Alcon Series 20,000 Legacy sets a new standard in phacoemulsification performance today. The Legacy advances ultrasonic and fluidic technologies and is built to embrace future enhancements. As an ophthalmic professional, you'll find the Legacy's precision standards and ease of operation will help you offer your patients the best possible care now and for years to come. This video introduces you to key features of the Series 20,000 Legacy and takes you step by step through the surgical setup, troubleshooting, and programming. Before using the Legacy, please read the operator's manual thoroughly and keep it handy as you watch this tape. The manual contains warnings, suggested settings, and operational details beyond those covered in this video. Included with this video is an insert highlighting system performance parameter ranges and factory recommended default settings. After your Alcon surgical service representative unpacks and sets up the unit, take some time to familiarize yourself with it. The front panel adjusts easily for visibility during setup and surgery. From the front panel, you will choose operating modes using the selection buttons. Program memorized settings for as many as 24 surgeons, and monitor surgical conditions via text screens and audible signals. Power up the Legacy for day-to-day operations using the standby power switch on the front panel. At the top of the touchscreen, two windows inform the surgical team of the unit's status and potential problems. The text window indicates modes, submodes, and general messages during normal operations. It also displays average ultrasound power levels when the ultrasound phaco mode is in use. Watch the text window for such messages as faults, errors, and advisories, status reports during setups, and status icons for ancillary equipment such as handpieces and the foot switch. Do not attempt to troubleshoot red fault codes. Contact Alcon Technical Service if a fault occurs. Consult the operator's manual for a complete list of warning colors and status icons. System status indicators signal various normal conditions. The primary parameters window displays one or two parameters in the selected mode. Arrows to the left of the window adjust maximum limits for each parameter. Additional parameters are displayed in the secondary parameters window. To adjust maximum limits, use the arrows to the right of the window. Select the operating mode with the primary mode selection buttons near the bottom of the control panel. You also may access these modes by pressing their symbols on the touchscreen or their buttons on the remote control. Voice confirmation follows each mode selection, and audio tones indicate changes in modes and operating conditions. You may adjust power, aspiration, and vacuum settings in each mode and program these settings for future use. Use the primary mode selection buttons to activate the irrigation mode, which provides gravity feed infusion into the eye. Adjust irrigation flow by raising or lowering the irrigation bottle. Press the irrigation button once to start constant fluid inflow. To stop irrigation, press it again. Irrigation foot switch is the system default setting. The hydrosonics handpiece is used to pre-soften the cataract prior to phacoemulsification. In this mode, the primary parameters are injection rate and ultrasound power. Pulse rate is the secondary parameter. Ultrasound mode is used for performing cataract emulsification and aspiration. Ultrasound power adjusts in 5% increments. Both panel and surgeon control may be enabled in this mode and its submodes. Ultrasound submodes are US Phaco, which activates the ultrasound handpiece, US Pulse, which controls the ultrasonic pulse rate, and USIA for use of the titanium ultrasound irrigation aspiration tip. Ultrasound power and vacuum level are primary parameters. The secondary parameter is aspiration rate. The irrigation aspiration mode is used for cortical cleanup after the cataract has been removed. Primary parameters are aspiration rate and vacuum level. IA submodes are IA max and IA min, in which the operator can adjust the preset aspiration and vacuum limits from the control panel. Both panel and surgeon control are available in these submodes to provide irrigation or simultaneous irrigation and aspiration via the foot switch. The surgeon asp setting of these modes allows linear control of the aspiration flow rate with fixed vacuum limits. The surgeon vac setting allows linear control of vacuum limits with fixed aspiration flow rate. The third IA submode is capsule vacuum for vacuuming the surface of the posterior capsule following cataract removal. Aspiration rate and vacuum level are the primary parameters. Only panel control is enabled in the cap-vac submode. The vitrectomy mode is used with the ATIOP handpiece for anterior vitrectomy. Both panel and surgeon control are available in these submodes. Cutting rate in both submodes is adjustable. Default submode is ATIOP, used for irrigation, cutting, and aspiration. IA cutter submode enables irrigation, aspiration, and cutting. Primary parameters are aspiration rate and vacuum level. Cut rate is the secondary parameter. The coagulation mode uses bipolar coagulation to drive the Alcon brush and forceps. Both panel and surgeon control are available in this mode. Power level settings range from 0 to 100%. You can also select operating modes using the remote control. Other buttons and display screens on the control panel are used for adjusting and displaying the height of the irrigation bottle, monitoring and resetting elapsed time during ultrasound use, system testing, system priming, and automated system teardown, and determining control of aspiration flow rate, vacuum limits, and ultrasound power between the control panel or the foot switch. The cassette housing on the Legacy's left side panel is designed for quick, efficient loading of fluidics cassette packs. Next to it, you'll connect handpieces for ultrasound, coagulation, autohydrosonics, and anterior vitrectomy on the connector panel. An unlabeled connector is provided for future expansion. When moving the Legacy, first unlock the wheels. Use the front and rear handles and always pull, never push the unit. The wheel locking mechanism, when engaged, prevents all movement once the Legacy is in place. You'll find more connectors, outlets, and switches on the rear panel. The main power switch, located on the lower right side of the panel, should be left on at all times. Use the standby power switch on the front panel for day-to-day operations. To the left of the power supply panel, fuse box, and cord wrap, you'll see the foot switch connection and storage bracket. The floppy disk drive and communication and phone ports will come in handy as you expand the Legacy options or install future upgrades. Find the unit's serial number and the service telephone number on the System Information area, located above the power cord wrap. The automated IV pole extends from the top of the rear panel. You can adjust irrigation bottle height from the system touchscreen, the foot switch, or the remote control. The right side of the unit, under the tray assembly, houses a storage drawer for handpieces and accessories. The surgeon can control all functions within the operating modes using the foot switch. Each foot switch operating position lights up its corresponding number and color on the control panel. Position 0 is standby in all functions and lights up in white. Position 1 is yellow. Position 2 is green, and position 3 is fuchsia. In the irrigation mode, positions 1, 2, and 3 are used solely for irrigation. In the hydrosonics mode, position 1 is irrigation. Position 2 is pulsed ultrasonics. Position 3 is pulsed ultrasonics and pulsed injection. For pulsed injection with no ultrasonics, depress the reflux switch on the left side of the foot switch. In the ultrasound mode, foot switch functions vary between panel control and surgeon control. Under panel control, position 1 is irrigation. Position 2 is irrigation and aspiration. Position 3 is irrigation and aspiration with fixed ultrasonics. If surgeon control is selected in the US phaco or US pulse submodes, position 1 is irrigation. Position 2 is irrigation and aspiration. Position 3 is irrigation and aspiration with linear control of ultrasonics. US pulse position 3 is intermittent linear ultrasonics with fixed aspiration. US IA submode under panel control provides irrigation in position 1, irrigation aspiration in position 2, and simultaneous irrigation, aspiration, and fixed ultrasonics in position 3. Under surgeon control of the US IA submode, position 1 is irrigation. Position 2 is irrigation with linear aspiration. Position 3 is irrigation with linear aspiration and fixed ultrasonics. In the irrigation aspiration mode, panel and surgeon control also differ. Under panel control of all IA submodes, position 1 is irrigation. Positions 2 and 3 are both for irrigation and fixed aspiration, determined by presets on the front screen. When surgeon asp control is used, the IA max and IA min submodes have 2 additional parameters. In the aspiration parameters, positions 2 and 3 allow linear control of aspiration flow rate with fixed vacuum limits. In the surgeon vac positions 2 and 3 allow linear control of vacuum limits with fixed aspiration flow rate. In the cap vac submode, only panel control is available, providing irrigation in position 1 and irrigation aspiration in positions 2 and 3. The 2 submodes of the vitrectomy mode also vary between panel and surgeon control, with aspiration and vacuum parameters. In the VIT ATIOP submode, position 1 is irrigation, position 2 is irrigation and cutting, and position 3 is irrigation aspiration cutting. Under panel control, position 3 is irrigation aspiration cutting. With surgeon asp control, position 3 is irrigation and cutting with linear aspiration rates and fixed vacuum level. With surgeon control of the vac parameters, position 3 is irrigation and cutting with linear vacuum levels and fixed aspiration rate. In the VIT IA cutter submode, position 1 is irrigation. When panel control is selected, position 2 is irrigation and fixed aspiration. Position 3 is irrigation, fixed aspiration and cutting as preset on the front screen. Under surgeon control of the aspiration parameters, position 2 is irrigation with linear aspiration rates and fixed vacuum level. Position 3 is irrigation, aspiration, and cutting with linear aspiration rates and fixed vacuum levels. Under surgeon control of the vacuum parameters, position 2 is irrigation with linear vacuum levels and fixed aspiration rate. Position 3 is irrigation, aspiration, and cutting with linear vacuum levels and fixed aspiration rate. In the coagulation mode, position 1 is standby, and positions 2 and 3 are fixed coagulation under panel control. Surgeon control is linear coagulation in position 2 and 3, and position 1 is standby. Depress the top of the foot switch side paddles to raise and lower the IV pole. Foot switch control of the IV pole must be turned on in the custom mode, as explained in the operator's manual. To activate reflux, swivel the paddles. Foot switch controlled reflux is available in all modes except irrigation free flow and coagulation. Future technology may make use of the expansion pedal located opposite the reflux pedal. The resistance control knob atop the foot switch adjusts resistance on the downstroke and upstroke. When the foot switch is not in use, hang it by its handle onto the Legacy's rear storage bracket. Never move the foot switch by its power cord. Most of the Legacy's functions can be directed from anywhere in the sterile and non-sterile fields using the wireless remote control. The keys and arrows on the remote are arranged much as they are on the Legacy's front panel. All controls are backlit for illumination in low lighting, and the test button has a raised collar to prevent accidental activation. The remote and the Legacy unit must be set to operate on the same channel. 2 channels are available to allow 2 units to operate independently in the same room. You'll find the remote control's channel switch in its battery compartment. During the System Setup section of this video, you'll learn how to prepare and operate the remote from the surgical tray and as a handheld unit. Different handpieces and tips are required for each mode and function. Many of these will be featured in the upcoming System Setup section. See the Accessories section of the Operator's Manual for a complete selection of sizes and styles. Here's a general description of the handpieces and tips required to perform irrigation aspiration and phaco procedures. The irrigation handpiece, designed solely for irrigating the anterior chamber, is used with these tips. The irrigating cystotome for performing anterior capsulotomy. The Kratz irrigating tip, a roughened irrigation tip for polishing the posterior capsule. And the cyclodialysis cannula, used to prolapse a soft lens nucleus into the anterior chamber. The ultraflow handpiece, designed for the irrigation aspiration mode, removes cortical material by aspiration while maintaining chamber pressure by irrigation. It comes with a selection of 5.3 mm tips: straight, curved, 45 degree, 90 degree, and a 120 degree bent tip. Each tip has a built-in metal irrigation sleeve, so no adapter or infusion sleeve is required. Series 8000 handpieces, used in the IA mode, remove cortical material by aspiration while maintaining chamber pressure by irrigation. Series 8000 tip ports all measure 0.3 mm and come in straight, curved, 45 degree, and 90 degree configurations. These 4 tips have built-in metal irrigation sleeves and require no tip cap sleeve. These reusable IA tips, used with the threaded tip adapter, also work with the Ultraflow handpiece. They fit the threaded 8036 irrigation aspiration handpiece as well. Available sizes are 0.2 mm, 0.3 mm, 0.5 mm, and 0.7 mm. The set includes an irrigation-only adapter. In the ultrasound mode, ultrasonic handpieces integrate the functions of irrigation, aspiration, and ultrasonics. These handpieces, which come in 375 40 kHz and 375 60 kHz models, require no disassembly other than the removal of disposable tubing, the ultrasonic tip, and the infusion sleeve with bubble suppression insert, or BSI. The hollow titanium tip is available in various styles, with bevels of 15 degrees, 30 degrees, and 45 degrees. The Hydrosonics tip and handpiece soften the cataract prior to emulsification. The handpiece accommodates a specially designed 29-gauge tip and lure-connected BSS auto-injector. Surgical items are pre-packaged into sterile packs and sold 6 packs to a carton. All items should be discarded after a single use. Be sure to read all package labeling before using any pack materials and never use packs that have exceeded their expiration date. The Turbosonics PEA pack for phacoemulsification contains an emulsifying ultrasonic tip and a tip wrench assembly to attach the tip to the handpiece and remove it after surgery. 2 Turbosonic infusion sleeves, one with a bubble suppression insert for use on the ultrasound phaco handpiece, and one without the bubble suppression insert for use on the irrigation aspiration handpiece. 1 standard IA tip wrench for securing the tip and later removing it from the IA handpiece. 2 identical test chambers, one for the US phaco handpiece and one for the IA handpiece. 1 cassette consisting of irrigation and aspiration manifolds and a drainage bag, a sterile tray cover, and directions for use. Use the Series 20000 Legacy IA pack for performing extracapsular cataract extractions. The pack contains most of the same materials as the Turbosonics PEA pack, but does not include an ultrasonic tip. The special Hydrosonics tip and priming syringe are included in the Hydrosonics auto-injector accessory pack, along with a tip wrench, a vented test chamber, and 6 feet of tubing with lure fittings. A Series 20000 Legacy parts kit contains 2 sterile Turbosonics infusion sleeves, one with bubble suppression insert, a tip wrench, and a test chamber. It comes without tip or cassette. CAT packaging, short for Remote Control Aseptic Transfer Packaging, provides sterile packaging for the remote control during handheld use. Reusable bipolar coagulation forceps are available in a variety of tip styles and in high-conductive, non-stick alloy, titanium, and disposable configurations. Disposable bipolar coagulation brushes are available without cords and with either reusable or disposable cords. Brushes are available in straight, curved, 20-gauge, 23-gauge tapered, and wide-stroke configurations. The sterile, disposable, Advanced Technology Irrigating Occutome Probe, or ATIOP handpiece, comes completely pre-assembled. Its irrigation sleeve enables simultaneous irrigation, aspiration, and cutting. This versatile handpiece features a variable port opening on the probe for closer cutting of a variety of tissues. The ATIOP handpiece is intended for single use only. Now let's step through the setup procedures for the Series 20000 Legacy. Phacoemulsification with the ultrasonic and irrigation aspiration handpieces may be set up in 2 ways. In the following demonstrations, the scrub nurse and the circulator will demonstrate their designated responsibilities in both the standard and alternate setups. Both methods use the Turbosonics PEA pack for ultrasound procedures. To begin both methods, connect the foot switch to the unit at the base of the rear panel. Plug the main power cord into a wall outlet. Always leave the rear panel power switch on. Use the standby power switch on the front panel for normal on-off operation. Once the power switch is turned on, self-test diagnostics will take about 30 seconds. Watch the display for faults or error conditions that may be detected. When these tests are successfully completed, the system enters its default mode, irrigation foot switch, and is ready for setup. Extend the IV pole hook. The circulator places all items to be sterilized on the instrument tray. Before sterilization, inspect the O-ring at the end of the tip section of the UltraFlow IA handpiece. If damaged, it must be replaced. To reduce wear on the O-ring tool, do not sterilize it each time the UltraFlow handpiece is sterilized. Instead, sterilize it wrapped so it can be stored. The troubleshooting section of the operator's manual explains O-ring replacement. After sterilizing the instruments and tray according to hospital procedure, the circulator removes the Series 20000 Legacy cassette pack lid and aseptically transfers the inner bag to the scrub nurse, who opens it and removes its single-use contents. Discard the band surrounding the components. If you plan to use the remote control during surgery, test it first by slightly raising or lowering the IV pole using the bottle height adjustment arrows. To use the remote control from the sterilization tray, the circulator places it on the side of the tray closest to the support tray arm. The scrub nurse drapes the tray support cover over the tray and arm and pulls to extend the wire loop on the tray. The drape is pushed downward through the open wire loop to form a pouch. Once the plastic instrument tray has been sterilized, the scrub nurse snaps it down over the draped metal tray to protect the remote control. For handheld use of the remote control, the circulator opens the outer pouch. The scrub nurse removes the packaging, and both the scrub nurse and the circulator unfold the inner pouch from around its cardboard sleeve. The scrub nurse pushes both sides of the sleeve together at the notches to form a rectangle, keeping a firm grasp on the pouch, as the circulator drops in the remote control. The circulator removes the cardboard sleeve from the pouch, and the scrub nurse seals the pouch carefully. The remote control may now be used throughout the sterile field. Do not sterilize the remote control itself. In the sterile field, the scrub nurse transfers the remaining components of the pack onto the instrument tray. The scrub nurse breaks the paper band on the irrigation and aspiration tubing and uncoils the top portion, placing it into the tray cover pouch. The scrub nurse passes the cassette and irrigation line with drip chamber to the circulator. The cassette is held by its handle with the printing on the drainage bag facing out. The circulator inserts the cassette into its housing on the unit's left side. For proper fit, it is angled out and smoothly pressed down and into the housing. The drainage bag should hang freely. When the cassette is inserted properly, the front panel cassette symbol will disappear. If it stays illuminated, reinsert the cassette or check the troubleshooting section of the operator's manual. Next, the circulator spikes the irrigation bottle and hangs it from the IV pole, then squeezes the drip chamber to fill it about half full. If the test chamber does not fill, check for kinks in the irrigation line. From this point, there are two methods to prime and tune the system, the standard and the alternate methods. The standard procedure is recommended because vacuum and vent tests will repeat automatically one time if necessary. The alternate procedure requires more operator intervention and is subject to handpiece connections. Both methods will be outlined, but the standard method is the preferred priming sequence. Watch the following demonstrations for the designated responsibilities of the scrub nurse and circulator. Begin the system fluidics test by connecting the blue lure aspiration line and white lure irrigation line together. Be sure to connect lines completely to prevent air from entering the aspiration line. Select Irrigation Foot Switch mode. Press Test to enter the test menu. Then press either Prime on the front panel or press Test again to initiate the prime sequence. The IV pole will raise to its maximum height. The 3 test phases will take about 2 minutes. Be sure the pump segment tubing loads properly in the initial seconds of the priming phase. You'll see the aspiration pump stop and restart during the test sequence. During the vacuum test, vacuum will build to 400 millimeters mercury. The vent test follows. After the vent test, the prime status indicator will turn green and text will change to primed. If the vacuum test fails and this message appears, reinitiate the priming sequence by pressing the test button twice. If this fails to eliminate the error message, consult the troubleshooting section of the operator's manual for corrective action. If the vent test or combination vacuum and vent test is not successful, the system will restart the vacuum and vent tests after a brief delay. If these tests fail, these error codes will appear. Consult the troubleshooting section of the operator's manual for corrective action. After testing, the Legacy reverts to the irrigation foot switch mode, or the last mode displayed, and the IV pole drops to a programmed setting or the default position. To set up the IA handpiece, begin by connecting the blue lure aspiration line and irrigation line to the IA handpiece. Select an IA tip and attach it to the handpiece with the tip wrench. If you're using a threaded IA handpiece, fit the silicone Turbosonics infusion sleeve without bubble suppression insert over the tip and screw it onto the handpiece until the sleeve clears the tip's aspiration opening. This diagram illustrates the proper alignment of the irrigation portholes on the sleeve. Select Irrigation Foot Switch mode. Depress the foot switch until irrigation fluid streams from the sleeve. Slide a test chamber filled with BSS or BSS Plus solution onto the tip end of the handpiece and release the foot switch. Press the IA Max Mode selection key and hold the handpiece horizontally at cassette level or place it in the instrument tray. Next, perform a fluidics balance test to confirm the integrity of the tip and handpiece. Pinch off the blue aspiration line near the handpiece to simulate an occlusion. Press and hold the foot switch in position 2 to start fluid flow. Continue to pinch for 5 seconds, after which the pump should stop. Release the pinch to open the aspiration tubing, noting that the test chamber maintains its shape or dimples slightly. If not, the fluidics test has failed and you should consult the troubleshooting section of the operator's manual. Do not proceed until the problem is solved. Release the foot switch to stop fluid flow. To set up the ultrasound handpiece, select US mode. Remove the protective cap from the connector by retracting the connector sheath and releasing the cap. Connect it to any ultrasound connector socket on the left side panel. Thread the ultrasound tip onto the handpiece and tighten it firmly with the tip wrench. Keep the wrench handy to remove the tip after surgery, but do not use the wrench in subsequent cases. Fit the Turbosonics infusion sleeve with bubble suppression insert over the tip. This diagram shows the optimal alignment of the sleeve to the tip. Remove the tubing from the IA handpiece and connect the irrigation and aspiration lines to the ultrasonic handpiece. Depress the foot switch to position 1 until irrigation fluid streams from the infusion sleeve. Fill a test chamber with this fluid and slide the chamber onto the tip end of the handpiece. Release the foot switch and place the handpiece in the instrument tray. Press the ultrasound mode selection key. Push the test button, then push the tune key. After tuning has been successfully completed, the tune status indicator will turn green. If tuning fails on the first try, the unit will automatically attempt a second tuning. After tuning, a flow test will run in phaco and pulsed phaco modes to signal aspiration flow within the tip and handpiece. If the handpiece fails this flow test, check the troubleshooting section of the operator's manual for corrective action. After completing the test mode, the unit reverts to US phaco mode, and the IV bottle returns to its default or programmed height. When switching from a primed handpiece to another handpiece, always remember to leave the filled test chamber on the primed handpiece until aspiration and irrigation lines are attached and the handpiece is ready for use. This keeps the lines free of unwanted air. The standard method will continue with irrigation handpiece setup. This will be demonstrated momentarily after we outline the alternate method of priming and tuning. The alternate method rearranges the priming, handpiece setup, and testing sequences. After prepping the instruments in remote control and installing the cassette, as in the standard procedure, set up the ultrasonic handpiece. After securing the irrigation and aspiration lines onto the handpiece, fill the test chamber. In the alternate procedure, do not start test priming until the test chamber is filled. Begin the prime sequence for priming, vacuum and vent testing, and tuning. Press the test button twice in the US phaco mode to begin priming. Note that in the alternate method, there is no automatic reprime. If an error message appears in the text window, you must reinitiate the priming sequence by pressing the test button twice. If you continue to receive error messages after the reprime, consult the troubleshooting section of the operator's manual. Then set up the irrigation aspiration handpiece. Proceed to irrigation handpiece setup. To set up the irrigation handpiece for surgery, press the irrigation mode selection key. Select the irrigating tip and attach it to the irrigation handpiece. Remove the irrigation tubing from the ultrasound handpiece and connect it to the irrigation handpiece. To prime the handpiece, depress the foot switch to position 1 for several seconds or use irrigation free flow. Always prime the irrigation handpiece in irrigation mode. If you detect no flow from the handpiece, check for kinks in the irrigation line or for a clogged cannula tip or handpiece. Hand off the connector end of the Hydrosonics handpiece. Retract the connector sheath and release the protective cap. Plug the handpiece connector into any of the ultrasound sockets on the rear connector panel. Assemble the handpiece to the injector section by aligning the cable with the slot of the injector body. Tightly connect, without twisting, the injector's recessed male lure and the handpiece's female connector. Insert the cord in the groove of the injector. Open the hydrosonics accessory pack and components and aseptically hand them to the scrub nurse. Remove and open the inner pack. Remove the tip and thread it onto the handpiece using the silicone tube as a holder until the tip is tightened. Remove the silicone tube and use the round side of the wrench to tighten the tip securely. Do not over-tighten it. Install the vented tuning chamber over the tip on the handpiece. Hold the handpiece vertically, tip up, and using the syringe, gently flush the female lure with 10 cc of BSS solution. The vented test chamber should be full. Connect the tubing to the injector, then hand off the end with the male twist lock lure to the circulator. Connect that lure to the system VIT port on the side panel and disconnect the irrigation tubing from the ultrasound handpiece. After separating the fluidics line back 2 feet, connect the irrigation tubing to the injector. Push the hydro mode button, then press the test button. Holding the handpiece vertically, select Prime to activate the injector priming sequence. Be sure to tap the handpiece during this sequence. For about 20 seconds, this sequence will prime the injector with a series of injection pulses, followed by the tuning sequence. After priming and tuning have been completed successfully, the primary status indicators will turn green. If the status indicators are not green for priming and tuning, consult the troubleshooting section of the operator's manual. To set up the coagulation handpieces or forceps, hand off the coagulation cable to the circulator, who inserts the cable connectors into the coagulation plugs on the Legacy connector panel. The Advanced Technology Irrigating Ocutome Probe, or ATIOP, is a disposable handpiece used for anterior vitrectomy procedures. If the ATIOP handpiece will be used during phacoemulsification, follow this setup procedure. Open the outer pouch of the ATIOP pack and aseptically transfer it to the scrub nurse. Open the inner pack. Remove the white band and pass the clear male lure lock connector with the long line to the circulator. Insert this connector into the VIT port on the Legacy connector panel. You may need to remove the hydrosonics lure lock first. Connect the ATIOP blue fitting to the blue aspiration line connector. Then connect the ATIOP white fitting to the white irrigation line connector. Press the VIT mode selection button. You should see this display on the front panel. Select the sub-mode you wish to use. Lower irrigation bottle height to 15 to 20 centimeters. Depress the foot switch pedal to position 1 until irrigation fluid fills the test chamber. Slide the full chamber onto the tip of the ATIOP handpiece. Hold the handpiece at patient eye level. Pinch off the aspiration line near the ATIOP handpiece. Depress and hold the foot switch in position 3 to start cutting and aspiration. Continue to pinch for about 5 seconds, then release the tubing. The test chamber should maintain its shape or dimple slightly. After observing the chamber, release the foot switch to stop fluid flow. The ATIOP handpiece is ready for surgery. If the test chamber drastically changes shape, check the troubleshooting section of the operator's manual. If the ATIOP handpiece isn't cutting, confirm that the aspiration port is open and that the irrigation sleeve is not obstructing the aspiration port opening. Be sure the clear ATIOP lure lock is securely connected to the ATIOP port. If the handpiece still isn't cutting, exchange the ATIOP handpiece and re-prime, or consult the troubleshooting section in the operator's manual. For planned vitrectomy, you must prime the irrigation and aspiration lines before priming the ATIOP handpiece. Refer to the operator's manual for additional setup details. Place all items to be sterilized on the instrument tray. After sterilizing the instruments and tray according to hospital procedure, remove the Legacy cassette pack lid and aseptically transfer the inner bag to the scrub nurse. Open the bag and remove its components. Discard the paper band. If you plan to use the remote control during surgery, follow the procedures outlined early in the setup section for testing and aseptic use. Transfer the remaining components of the cassette pack onto the instrument tray. Break the paper band on the irrigation and aspiration tubing and uncoil the top portion. Place it in the tray. Hand off the cassette and irrigation line with drip chamber to the circulator. Holding the cassette by its handle so the printing on the drainage bag is facing you, insert the cassette into its housing on the unit's left side. For proper fit, angle it toward you and smoothly press it down and into the housing. The drainage bag should hang freely. Remove the paper band from the irrigation line tubing. Spike the irrigation bottle and hang it from the IV pole. Squeeze the drip chamber to fill it about half full. Open the outer pouch of the ATIOP pack and aseptically transfer it to the scrub nurse. Open the inner pack. Remove the white band and pass the clear male lure lock connector with the long line to the circulator. Insert this connector into the VIT port on the rear panel. Connect the ATIOP blue fitting to the blue aspiration line connector. Then connect the ATIOP white fitting to the white irrigation line connector. Press the VIT mode selection button. You should see this display on the front panel. Select the submode you wish to use. Depress the foot switch pedal to position 1 until irrigation fluid fills the test chamber. Slide the full chamber onto the tip of the ATIOP handpiece. Press the test button, then select Test or Prime to initiate the prime sequence. This is identical to the standard prime sequence shown during the system's fluidics test earlier in this section of the video. After each case, the Legacy's fluidics module can be cleaned by pressing the test button and pressing Clean on the screen. The cleaning cycle runs in all modes except coagulation. After the cleaning process is completed, a visual prompt will appear for cassette removal. The operator's manual covers troubleshooting for all procedures and accessories, including cassette insertion, IA priming, US phaco tuning, auto hydrosonics priming and tuning, and anterior vitrectomy setup, as well as the handpieces, remote control, and foot switch. It also explains user messages, including system faults, system errors, and vacuum reading errors. The Legacy stores and retrieves memorized preferences by surgeon name. Each surgeon may program as many as 4 sets of parameters. To add a doctor, press Custom to display this screen. Press Add in the Edit Doctor box. Type in the doctor's name. To correct a mistyped letter, use the backspace key. The Cancel key will return to the program mode without saving. Press Store when you have finished, and press Exit to return to the main menu screen. To erase a doctor's name, press Custom and select the name. Press the Erase button in the Edit Doctor box. Then press Exit to return to the main menu screen. To program memorized settings, press Custom and select the doctor's name. Then press Exit to return to the main screen. Press 1 to 4 mode keys to enter specific parameters using the arrow keys. After setting all modes, press Custom. Press the IV pole button to customize bottle heights for individual modes on this screen. Select a submode and adjust settings by pressing the plus and minus boxes or any up-down arrows on the front panel. Finally, press Exit to return to the program screen. When no value is programmed in a given mode, the IV pole will remain at the default height of 65 centimeters or at the last programmed bottle height. Alcon recommends that if you program one bottle height within a mode, bottle heights should be programmed for all modes. To customize aspiration flow rates in the ultrasound modes, press the aspiration button in the Special Functions box. Different aspiration rates may be programmed for foot switch positions 2 and 3, but the foot switch must be depressed in position 2 or 3 before the screen will display the flow. Program flow rates using the same procedures as for IV pole programming. Press one of the 4 store keys to save all settings. Each doctor has the option of 4 programmed memory settings in the store memory. Press Exit to return to the main menu. To access pre-programmed memory settings, press the Custom key and select the doctor's name. Press Exit to return to the main menu and press the memory key on the right side of the screen. Select the memory setting you wish to retrieve. Use the same procedures to set program submodes. Consult the operator's manual for detailed explanations about submodes and remote control channel settings. Reusable irrigation and irrigation aspiration handpieces and tips may be gas, flash, or steam autoclaved. Ultrasound handpieces and reusable coagulation handpieces should only be flash or steam autoclaved. The sterilization reservoir should be filled with distilled or deionized water. The hydrosonics handpiece and the injector portion should be separated in steam autoclaved unwrapped at 132 degrees Celsius or 270 degrees Fahrenheit. Before sterilizing the ultrasound and hydrosonics handpieces, always secure the connector end cap. Then place the handpiece in the sterilization tray to prevent damage during handling and autoclaving. To maximize the life and performance of reusable handpieces, allow them to air cool for about 15 minutes following steam or flash autoclaving. Consult the operator's manual for Alcon's suggested sterilization times and temperatures, or reference current AORN standards or the hospital standard procedures for current specifications. Chapter 4 of the operator's manual lists specific warnings, symbols, and labels for the Legacy. Please read these carefully before using the unit. Before returning any part of a unit, such as an ultrasonic handpiece, you must consult Alcon Surgical Technical Services to avoid unnecessary shipping or to receive a return material authorization number. Contact this department for any problem that persists beyond setup and troubleshooting. For optimum performance, schedule preventative maintenance twice a year with Alcon's trained field service representatives. To arrange on-site service or receive warranty information, contact the Technical Services Department at this number. Alcon, the industry leader, salutes you and your fellow ophthalmic professionals for teaming up with the Series 20,000 Legacy to provide the best care for your patients, now and always.